Hey, y'all, welcome to a special edition of our War Report Wednesday segment because we got to talk about some big changes on the Plains. Johnnie Harris is out as the Auburn women's basketball head coach. So to talk a little bit more about that, of course, we brought in our friend Mike Giddens. Mike, I wish you were here on happier notes, but let's talk about what went to the decision of separating from Johnnie Harris.
The university released a statement yesterday saying that they have decided to move on from Johnnie Harris as head coach of their women's basketball program. 4 years on the Plains. She had a 58-63 record as head coach. And unfortunately for her, it was marked by a really tumultuous last year. Tons of injuries. We talked about it week after week here on War Report Wednesdays. Not many schools are built to survive, right, the type of injuries that they sustained. At one point, they went through practice with 5 players.
5?
5 players, right, through a week of practice in season. So if you're Johnnie Harris, you're going to get a job. You're going to get hired. She is a great basketball mind, and I think she's going to land on her feet. Now, as far as the merits of this decision, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, Rex. You have a coach who's going into the last year of her contract. You've got the number 16 recruiting class in the country coming in. So the recruits are seeing the vision, right? But for whatever reason, the AD is not. It should be noted that when the Mississippi State job came open a few years ago, Johnnie Harris was up for that job. And John Cohen, Auburn's current AD, was the AD at Mississippi State. He decided to pass on her for that job. It appears that he's following in that trend here at Auburn in terms of passing on her again. But certainly, if you're Johnnie Harris, I think you're going to land on your feet here. And I think that you have a really good proof of concept. Most coaches that I've talked to in the league understand that she did more with less here at Auburn. The resources are not what they are at LSU and Ole Miss and Mississippi State in terms of commitment to the program. So, until Auburn decides to get serious about supporting their women's program, I'm not sure that you get a coach that comes in and does much better than what Johnnie Harris did.
And unfortunately, that's how things unfold. You brought it up as my next topic was a top 16 recruiting class. Now that they see the woman who's recruited them and believed in them on the recruiting trail is going on to a different chapter, what is going to happen with this number 16 class that includes one of the best players in our area right in Phoenix City?
That's such a great question, Rex. Players commit to coaches and their vision for them. So when you remove the coach from the equation, the math changes for the recruit. And what you're going to see, I think, is you're going to see this recruiting class fall apart. Now, whether they can get other girls in will depend on whether they're willing to put the resources behind the next coach that they were clearly unwilling to put behind this coach. And I want to be clear about that. Auburn did not put the type of resources behind Johnnie Harris that she would have needed to do much more than what she was doing in recruiting. And still, she got Deanna Gaston to come here. She got Talia Scott to come here. Deanna, top 10 scorer in all of the NCAA this past season. And if Talia had not gotten hurt, you would have had 2 top 10 scorers in the country on the same squad, and Johnnie Harris would still be the coach. There's a story to tell later when the dust settles about how Auburn managed this process, right? And what I think was internal sabotage.
That's, unfortunately, we'll have to see what that story is later on. And also including that, she went out internationally, got Yutin Dong, who made an all-conference team as well. So, again, there was a lot. A promise was there. We saw kind of the opportunity to chase down some greatness, but unfortunately the journey's cut short. How should Johnnie Harris be remembered on the Plains?
I think she should be remembered as somebody who cared a lot about her players. She cared a lot about what she was doing, and she accomplished some great things here. To put it in perspective, when Dawn Staley took over South Carolina, she didn't have them in the NCAA tournament by year 3. Johnnie Harris had Auburn in the NCAA tournament by year 3. And so that success, I think, is what she should be remembered for. Auburn won 0 SEC games the year before she took over. And in year 1, she won 2 games. In year 2, she won 5 games. In year 3, she won 8 games, beat defending national champion LSU, and went to the NCAA tournament. Now, they came up short again because of injuries. I don't know if you remember that first round game versus Arizona, but Jemiah Mingo Young,
Superstar.
turns her ankle in
then-
practice, like in warm-ups, and they lose by 8 in a game that I think they would have won if Jemiah had been 100%. But ultimately, it's timing. It's a lot of things that sometimes are out of your control as a coach. And if you're Johnnie Harris, you got to get back on the wagon, and you're going to find another job, and you're going to prove to Auburn why this was likely a mistake to let her go. I just don't understand why you let a coach go for a program you haven't really shown any interest in supporting, especially when she has a year left on her contract. Right? So now, university officials will probably dispute that they don't care about women's basketball, but I think it's not debatable. The financial commitment wasn't there.
Right.
It wasn't there, and what she was being asked to do, and in talking to the recruits as well too, they weren't committing to Auburn because of money.
They were committing to Johnnie Harris.
Right, and I think that is a feat in and of itself in today's college athletics, where there's big time money at the women's basketball level right
We've
now.
seen it with Angel. We've seen it with Caitlin Clark. We see it constantly with the UConn players now, and what's happening in South Carolina. It's just it wasn't there.
You don't have 6 figures. You can't go out and get a Talia Scott unless you're Johnnie Harris.
And that's definitely going to be an interesting situation to see how this all unfolds. Before we go, though, have you had any leads or heard anything about who could be taking over the reins?
Yeah, I think that there were some rumors out there, and I will say this: there is a current SEC head coach that has been telling high school coaches that he's going to be the next coach at Auburn.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I question the professionalism of that messaging. I've had those coaches reach out to me. I've had the players of those parents reach out to me to say, hey, what's going on? This guy is saying he's
verification.
that he's going to be at Auburn. And so if you're Auburn, I think you got to tread carefully around this one and make sure that if you make a hire, that everything was done on the up and up. So certainly we'll see how that plays out. But if you're Auburn, you serve the student athletes with the next hire, right? Make sure that you're serving the student athletes, and no matter who you hire, you got to put the resources behind that person, or it's going to be really difficult for them to succeed.
Johnnie Harris, unfortunately, her time at the Plains is done, but I think to echo what Mike G has said and what we've said on this program a lot, she can recruit. She brought in a whole lot of talent to Auburn when she did not have a lot of the dollars that a lot of people in her own conference had. So we wish Ms. Harris and Coach Harris good luck, and we'll keep you tuned in what happens next with the Auburn women's basketball team. For Mike G, I'm Rex Castillo. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.